Okay, let's kick this thing off. Happy Friday, everybody. We're reaching the end of our first week of this little experiment we launched on Monday to do daily guided live meditations right here on the interwebs. We're still figuring out some of our tech stuff, and we really appreciate you guys rolling with it. At the end of this, if you could do us a favor and click on the survey, which is in the description of the video, and tell us what you like and what you don't like, that would be great. Toby is not here today. We get a lot of requests for Toby, but unsolicited, there was an entrance from another cat. He only has 3 teeth, so we affectionately refer to him as Ruthless and Toothless. All right, I'm dropping him down because he will interrupt the meditation. Our meditation teacher today is my word, not his, a giant in the field. His name is Jack Kornfield, and there he is beaming in to us from the San Francisco area. Jack, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, I'm pleased to join. And I think the service and the support that you're offering to a really big community is critical at this time. So thank you, too.
Thank you. I want to ask you a question that you and I were chatting right before we went live here. I've been having a lot of conversations with people and hearing that, I was talking to the great radio host Krista Tippett yesterday, and she referred to this as a species moment. That it's in some ways going to be a reset on a global reset on modern life. And I just wonder. I mean, you can make pessimistic prognostications, optimistic ones. Where are you in terms of your thinking about how this is going to affect how we live?
Well, it is a species moment in that we are having to realize in a deeper way our interconnectedness, and it doesn't matter how much you try to isolate yourself in the country or how much money you have and so forth. Yes, it will affect the vulnerable and the poor and the homeless and so forth immediately, but it's not going to stop there. If I understand right, some of the ministers in Iran have already died. It's going to happen to us all, and we have to realize this. So I believe and hope that we're going to be able to take a pause, the 99% of us that get through this, and hopefully reset our values and say what really matters. How do we care for one another and for the earth? So I'll have an optimistic view at the moment that could happen, and hope that it does.
I hope you're right.
Yes.
Just for the uninitiated who are unfamiliar with your work, before we dive into the meditation, can you just describe? I know you've been at this meditation thing for coming up on 55 years. Can you just describe your background briefly so people know?
Sure. So I trained as a Buddhist monk in monasteries of Thailand and Burma and India, and I also trained. I got a PhD in clinical psychology, and I've been bringing Eastern and Western psychology together, and together with colleagues like Joseph Goldstein, Sharon Salzberg, have been some of the group that introduced mindfulness practice to the West.
Yes, the pioneers who really made a massive contribution to the world, I believe. The sine qua non of my meditation career, the fact that you guys went over to Asia, learned these practices, and came back and taught them in a way that made it comprehensible and attractive to this culture.
Yeah, we knew it had transformed us, and we hoped it would be a benefit to others. And the other thing that we've all done is we've trained a lot of other teachers, which is very satisfying. I'm still doing that on my website, jackkornfield.com. You can see there's a global teacher training. We now have almost 2,000 people in it who want to learn how to offer mindfulness and compassion practices to others, so that it's not owned by anybody, but it's made available in schools and clinics, wherever people can use it.
Yeah, it's been a great initiative, which I know you've run with your a partner who's another giant in this field of Tara Brach, she's been on my podcast. I'd love to have her on this web thing we're doing now. So let's get down to business, if you don't mind. Would you be willing to guide us in a quick meditation?
Yes, with pleasure. So for those of you who are listening, and in this case I imagine not driving, so that's a good thing for this practice, center yourself. make sure you're seated in a comfortable and stable way. And if you're comfortable with it, let your eyes close, or if not, let them be downcast. And begin to tune in this present moment to the experience here and now. And this is a practice of trusting in awareness and compassion. And as you tune in, you might take a deeper breath or two to release any obvious tension that you can. And then bring your attention, we'll call it a mindful, loving awareness, to your body. And without any judgment, simply notice the state of your body just now. There might be areas of tightness or tension, warm or cool, might be contraction, heaviness, lightness. And as you bring a mindful, loving awareness to your body, allow things to be as they are, and bring in the quality of kindness or compassion. Your body's doing the best it can at this point. You can almost thank it. And notice that as you hold it with loving awareness and compassion, the fears and tensions that are carried in the body can begin to soften and release. You can steady yourself. And now shift your attention and bring the same mindful, loving awareness to your heart. And notice what feelings are present. And as we get quiet in this time of the pandemic, of the coronavirus, there are naturally so many feelings. Anxiety or fear, or grief, anticipation, anger, feelings of helplessness, all those kind, along with many others. And sense what's present now in your own heart. Those, of course, along with care and love. And bring the spirit of compassion and loving awareness as if you could hold a frightened child, to hold all the emotions that are present. And notice what happens when you bring a loving and compassionate awareness to all the feelings that are present. Like the body, they begin to soften. And there comes instead a sense of greater peace and stability. And gradually, you can begin to sense a trust in awareness, that you are the awareness knowing what's happening in your body, in your heart, in your mind. And you can trust that awareness itself, this field of mindful, loving awareness and compassion, is big enough to hold all of the experiences, that you can hold these with a steadiness and a calm and a kind or compassionate and generous spirit. You are accessing a greater inner strength beyond the feelings and thoughts and sensations in the body. You can thank your body for trying to protect you. You can thank your heart and your emotions, the fears and confusion. Thank you for trying to protect me. I'm okay for now. And as you thank them and hold in compassion, you trust more and more deeply your capacity to be present and wise and loving. and strong through it all. Now, keeping the sense of steadiness and trust and awareness itself, let your eyes open and know that this same quality of inner strength that we need in this time can be tapped into whenever you need.
Thank you very much, Jack.
Pleasure.
So we've already got some questions coming in from people who are watching. This one's from James William. Do you have a recommended mantra for us in this time of unsureness?
You can use a mantra or a repetitive phrase, and they're as good in English as they might be in another language, whether it's in Sanskrit or, Burmese or Tibetan. And I would recommend the simple mantras that teachers like Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh use. A mantra like calm and steady with each breath, or calm and kind with each breath, as a reminder of how we can live and as an invitation for those very qualities of heart and mind to be present.
On this issue of kindness, which you hit, in a big way in the guided meditation, bringing a sort of a clear awareness of whatever's going on for us internally, but also a sense of warmth, friendliness.
Yes.
You have a student who I've become quite close with, who's become one of my teachers, Spring Washam, who we're hoping to get on this live stream, and I did a one-on-one retreat with her, and really the big lesson that I've been writing about that retreat recently, that I learned from that is that you can, and I really went there again when I was listening to your meditation, that I have all sorts of things coming up during this time. Some of them are embarrassing, selfish concerns about what's going to happen to me and all of this, and I don't really like that they're coming up, but just that reminder of, you can see it clearly with a sense of friendliness, that those voices that might be embarrassing to you, they're just trying to protect you, maybe unskillfully.
That's right. They are trying to protect you. And you start to see the natural response in our vulnerability that all these things, how do I take care of myself? What about my money? What about my children? What about my own? And then you start to trust that awareness can hold your whole humanity. We're in this together. And you realize that it's not just you, that everybody has at this time fears, confusion, uncertainty, and that with mindful, loving awareness, we can tolerate all of that and know that that's not who you are. The other thing to add is that we did our own inner practice, but this affects those around us. As Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh said, when the crowded Vietnamese refugee boats met with storms or pirates, if everyone panicked, all would be lost. But if even one person on the boat remained centered and calm, it was enough. It showed the way for everyone to survive. And this is a famous passage, but it means that in tending ourselves and making the space to hold our own vulnerability, our fears, our follies, our humanity, we begin to trust this deeper capacity to be present for one another, and we affect all those around us.
Yeah, the story had come up from several teachers, from at least one other teacher this week, and it lands well for me. Let me just see if I can sneak in a few more questions from our viewers. Audrey asks, how do we handle our fear in this very scary time when people are telling us, don't worry, it'll be fine?
You will hear, Audrey, all these voices On one end of the spectrum, you will hear denial because it's hard to tolerate the uncertainty or the potential suffering, especially for those who are vulnerable, but also people we love and care about as well as ourselves. So when people can't tolerate it, they tend to go into denial or pretend that it's not happening. And it's especially so when you're young and you feel like you're invulnerable and you know, immortal. But it's not true, of course. So that's one end. At the other end, instead of denial, people can get lost in the fears. And we actually don't know how this will play out. If we're fortunate, someone will come up with a medicine that works sooner rather than later, or a vaccine. 99% of us are also going to survive through this anyway. And today is the first full day of spring. I think yesterday marked the turning. There's a vitality and life force that wants to re-arise, that animates you, that's part of who we are. We're the living system. And yes, we've gone through hard times before, and we know how to do this. But to catastrophize in a way shuts down your body and your nervous system and your endocrine. And instead to say, I know how to be steady through this. I know how to be loving, and we know how to get through this.
A question coming in on a similar note from MC. You alluded to the reset this will prompt. Can you please elaborate on how we can use this crisis to become more present?
Well, there are two parts to becoming present. One, which was the meditation that we just did, in which you actually become present for your body, your feelings, your states of mind, and open what the neuroscientists call open the window of tolerance, so that you can trust the heart of compassion is big enough, the field of awareness is big enough to hold all this and to be steady and calm and wise in the midst of it all. And to do that regularly is really important, because you'll get washed over by the fears of others and the news and so forth. Turn it off, sit down, center yourself, realize I know how to do this. We as human beings have these inner resources. And then as we do that, they become part of the global reset. If there are enough of us who realize our interdependence, who cultivate a compassion and steadiness in this time, then when we get through this wave of virus, we can look at one another with new loving eyes and say, all right, how now shall we live? It's like someone who's had a near-death experience. Okay, I better look again and see what matters to me. And what matters is, did I love well? Did I bring my gifts to the earth? Did I care for those around me? And that is really how the reset will happen.
Yeah, I really seen that I spent a couple of years volunteering in a hospice, and you really see that. I mean, it's the cliche at the end of life. Nobody's saying, I wish I spent more time at the office. But if you spend time at a hospice, nobody is saying that. They're all talking about the quality of their relationships. Jack, in closing, I just want to say a few things to the audience, and then one final thing to you. To the audience, I want to say thank you for being with us all week, and we'll be back next week and the week after, and as long as this crisis continues, and perhaps beyond. Monday, we have the great teacher Joanna Hardy, also from the left coast, like Jack. We've also posted a bunch of free content for people who are, suffering during this time. If you go to 10%.com, you can click a link to what we're calling the Coronavirus Sanity Guide. We've posted a bunch of free meditations and little mini talks from all sorts of teachers and experts. The podcast is going to twice weekly. So we just posted something on parenting in a pandemic on Wednesday. And today we posted something on, what was it on? Working from home, which has become quite challenging for many of us. And we've got many more episodes coming. As I mentioned at the top, if you've got 30 seconds to fill out the survey, we'd love that. The final thing I want to say is on Fridays, we're going to highlight and try to get us all together to support a good cause. One of the big problems we're seeing all over the country right now in the middle of this pandemic is that food banks have been hit really hard. So I just want to highlight a national effort you can sign up to help, and then also a local effort you can sign up to help. The local one is in Placer County, California. There's a food bank there that has been hit really hard right now because not only are they running out of food, but all of their volunteers are over the age of 65 and can no longer work. So they're looking for a lot of help, and the link to support them is foodbank.org. If you want to approach this from a more national standpoint, there's a great organization called Feeding America. They've got a COVID-19 response fund, and I believe we're going to put up the link to that as well. And if they're not up on the screen, they'll be in the description on the YouTube page. 10% Happier will be making a donation as well to Feeding America. This is going to be an ongoing issue, the food banks, so let's keep them in mind. Jack, I just want to say in closing to you, thank you very much. This is a bit to put it in the TV terms. When we get a great interview, we call it a good get. So in the meditation world, you're a great get. So thank you very much for agreeing to do this.
Thank you, Dan.
Hey, Dan.
Oh yeah.
Real quick, can you repeat the food bank? It got cut out and people weren't able to hear what you said for the local food bank.
Okay, sorry, Jack. That's Jess, our producer, the amazing Jess, who makes all of this happen. So let me just heed her, and then I'll let Jack say what he has to say. So the food bank, it's placerfoodbank.org, and if you can write it down, but it's also going to be, we'll put it in the description on the YouTube page, and then Feeding America's COVID-19 response fund. The link to that is just go to feedingamerica.org, and you'll be able to click around to get right to the place where you can donate to the COVID-19 relief fund. Sorry, Jack, you were saying something. We cut you off.
I was just going to say we're virtually holding hands together in this as human beings, and we're also teaching one another, supporting one another, that we can trust how to get through this with a good heart and with the kind of wisdom that all of us have within us. So thank you.
Jack, thank you very much. And thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you right back here on Monday.